This is Rob Tebbutt for Boxing Social. Delighted to be joined here today by the Black Panther, Luther Clay. How are you, Luther? Been a while since I've seen you.
Yeah, man, I'm good. What about yourself?
I'm very well, thank you. Very well. Since I've last seen you, been back in action again. Got another win under your belt.
Yeah, I fought in obviously Bracknell again on the second show there against Frenchman Yahad Tilatziao. He was 13-3, so it was a good fight. Got another win, and yeah, so been then. I've just been resting since then. Relaxing out the rest of the year and all that stuff.
Getting a bit of food in you.
A lot of food. A lot of food. I'm looking rested and stuff right now. But I started training, getting back in shape and everything. So we're looking for a big fight. We're looking for big fights next year. And like people keep saying, I want to see me fight an Englishman, someone like John Smith or something like that. So, we're going to be preparing for some good fights next year,
And the first time I spoke to you was the start of the year when you boxed on the Groves Eubank undercard World Boxing Super Series. Since then, you've been back in the ring quite regularly. Seem to have got a few wins under your belt. How important has this year been for you development-wise?
Yeah, boxing's weird, Like, you always think like things are gonna move differently. Like, I spent, I think maybe 7 fights fighting on small hall shows and stuff like that, and it was great for me because I haven't got that much boxing experience, so it's all wonderful. Then I got on that World Super Series, and I thought, okay, after I beat this guy, okay, I'm gonna get more offers to be on bigger shows and stuff like that, and but it hasn't happened that way. It's like you get a big show, got that show. I looked okay. I looked good on that show. I won the fight easy, and I thought, okay, I'll be out again on another big show. But it hasn't happened. Obviously, I'm still being regular, and I'm very grateful for that because my management keeping me busy, getting me on fights. But it's like, I don't know. You kind of look at things that distort reality. But so it's for 2019. I don't even know what the year is. 2019. Looking forward to getting more wins on my belt, getting some 10-rounders, and then like everyone's saying, push on for some sort of title, whatever that is. Whatever that is, don't really care because it doesn't mean anything anyway. It's not a world title, so I'm joking. But yeah, that's the plan for 2019.
How difficult has it been? I mean, you alluded to it there. I think a lot of people, certainly from the outside looking in at boxing, don't really understand the perception of what it is to be certainly a young fighter. You're not somebody who's an Olympic gold medalist who's come out of the amateurs with an outstanding reputation. Has it been difficult for you to kind of live in the moment and kind of plan throughout the year? I mean, you just mentioned it with the World Boxing Super Series. It didn't lead to what you were thinking about at the time. How difficult is that, and what do you do to kind of to continue on as a professional?
For me, on the real, before I even turned professional, I had people that were professional fighters in my small town. Like my trainer now, Keith Marner, he was a professional, 9-1, won the Southern Area title, then retired a bit later. And then I used to be trained by Jeff McCreesh. He was a British title, and he won some version of the WBO or something like that. So like I had a very good insight of how shitty the boxing game really is. So like I already was prepared for that. And even when I told people I was turning pro, they're like, you're not going to get anywhere because you haven't had the amateur, and you're not a name, it's going to be hard. So I had like a good understanding. So when I went into boxing, I basically told myself I ain't nothing, and I'm going to have to work a long time to get to where I am. But it's like you look into it and you're like, damn, I've been professional 3 years, and you still feel kind of like you're still not professional. Like when you ask a professional footballer and they say I'm a professional footballer, when people ask me, I'm like, yeah, I box. Do you know what I mean? It's like that. But I think you just gotta kind of stay humble, keep working hard, and kind of keep small targets. Have like the big target, but you gotta understand you got the small little checkpoints or whatever that you have to keep reaching. And each fight is very important. But before the fight, there's all the training and improving. You got to more focus on that than the money and the whatever, being on TV, and even people, what's the word, getting recognition. You even got to forget about that. You just got to focus on the small little targets and hit those, stuff like that.
Now, something that I admire certainly about you and your team and the people around you is that you're willing to. I mean, you travel all of this way to come and interview me. You come all this way to see me, which I can't quite understand. But how important do you think that is for fighters developing to kind of get out there and and kind of take the ball by the horns. We live in a world, and certainly a sport of social media is key, and kind of getting your face out there. Is that something that you've kind of made a conscientious effort and decision to do in your career?
Yeah, I mean, for me, yeah, I'm not like, for some fighters it's hard because, you know, some fighters have like families, kids, and they have working jobs. You know, because boxing when you're starting there's no income in boxing when you're starting. But for me, I'm in a position where, number one, I'm living at home with my family. My family totally supportive of what I'm doing, and they understand. Number two, I've got great communication with my manager, who's also my promoter and matchmaker, and now he started employing a couple more people that I'm, you know, familiar with, and so like it's a very comfortable working space. Look, when they say I want you to fight here, I'm like, I ain't gonna be ready. I don't have to lie and like kill myself to try be ready for a date that I know, because I know if I don't take this fight, they might put me on the shelf, or you know what I mean. I can speak to them. Look, I ain't gonna be ready for this. I'm gonna be ready for this. You know what I mean? And they won't be like, oh. I mean, they'll be annoyed. They'll be like, okay, fine. Do you know what I mean? So like with different fighters, with some fighters, they're not in that position, because most of the time, let's say even if you're signed to a major, let's say you're signed to Sky or let's say Matchroom or BT. What's Frank Warren? Queensbury Boxing. With them, you have to be on the ball, like, because if you say, oh, I won't be ready, there's 100 other fighters they'll be like, take you up, and next time they might not even want to call you up because you had your shot and you said you ain't going to be ready, so that's on you. So for me, I got that communication, and I'm able to do whatever. Like Al, my manager said today, okay, we need to go talk to boxing. So I was like, all right, cool, great, pick me up, we go, because this is all I'm doing. Yeah, I've got some pros and cons, but for me right now in my situation, the pros outweigh the cons. But for everyone else, it's difficult. You know, it's difficult to call in work and say I can't come today because I've got to go do an interview. They're gonna look at you like, what? Get your ass to work or lose your job. So it's hard. It's just, you got to be in the right situation. You got to be right in a situation most of the time, and that's why a lot of fighters don't make it. Like I saw some fighter from London, Bobby Woods, great boxer. I follow him on YouTube, on Instagram. He retired because he was paying money out of his own pocket because he couldn't sell tickets to fight, and that makes you feel like, am I really a professional boxer? Do you know what I mean? Stuff like that. So it's just all about situation. You got to be in the right situation and the right team around you, or you know, you're just gonna be another number that what if kind of thing. You know.
You mentioned your manager, Al Siesta, somebody who I know fairly well. I've come across Al various different times of my career. How influential has he been, and what has he got planned for you going forward? Al was somebody who's quite an intense man. He's always on the end of the phone. He's not short of a word or two. Talk to me about working with Al and what you've got planned going forward.
In terms of, I'll start off working with Al. For me, I'm very laid back. I'm very chill, very patient. So like, when Al calls me, he'll call me, and he'll say like 20 different things, and I'll be like, okay, call me later when you know, like, and that call might be a couple of days later or it might be 2 months later, but it doesn't matter because I know he's working. All I got to do is stay training, stay in the gym, and whatever, and we have that communication. And then there'll be some days when he's not so busy, and we'll be talking every single day about not even me, just boxing in general. So like, you got to have that understanding. You got to be patient, and you got to understand that he's doing his job. You got to do your job, and when there's time, like today, you know, we got time. We've been talking about everything. So, working with Al is like that. So, and in terms of what I've got planned for next year, I don't really plan anything. What Al will do is like, he'll chuck a couple names at me, not just for each fight, but he'll chuck like 3 or 4 or 5 names at me that he wants me to fight this fight, and then maybe this guy at the end of the year kind of thing. So like, I always kind of have a plan of who I should be watching, whether that be fighters in Europe, fighters in England, or fighters. I'm trying to get some crazy fight in America right now. That's what I'm trying to get out to do. Even fights in South Africa, I'm trying to do. But like, you know, like so I have that kind of route. And with me, I'm in a situation where I can really box anywhere with the way that I'll set it up. I can box in England, I can go box in Africa, and I can potentially go boxing, you know what I mean, America and Canada. That's what I want to do. So I want to go box everywhere. So that's my plan. But next year, like I said, I want to get some good names towards the end of the year with some British names and stuff like that, and make more of a bit of a mark. And if some sort of title arises, yeah, then we'll go for a title. But yeah, it's just continuing learning and improving and, you know, focus on like the long-term goals rather than the short-term. Because in the day, I'm 23. I got so much time, and I'm gonna keep getting better, and that's it.
A name that's been mentioned by you to me previously, and I've seen comments on social media, is Conor Benn. Is that a fight that you're still realistically pursuing, or is that something that, again, as you mentioned, is sort of more of a long-term thing?
The thing is, Conor is not the best fighter out of the prospects. Conor's not really the best fighter out of all the prospects. He's just a name. And when people mention my name with him and stuff, it's like, I ain't gonna lie, I don't even like my name being mentioned of Conor, because I feel like this, right? I'll call out Conor, or people will say my name of Conor, but realistically, for me to be able to get that Conor Benn fight, or any other fighter to be able to get that Conor Benn fight, the prospects, the top 10 prospects in the UK, we'd have to fight each other first before we get to Conor Benn. That's not, you don't just get that. It's like, okay, imagine this, right? Imagine I said, I want to fight Conor Benn, and they're like, okay, why don't you go fight like Josh Kelly? If you beat Josh Kelly, you're gonna get Conor Benn. Ain't nobody willing to do that. Or there's other fighters that are below. I'm not gonna mention them, but I'm just making an example. All the top prospects, there's no point calling out names we're not gonna get. We have to fight each other if we want to get there. And no prospects want to fight each other because we sell tickets, right, to get opponents to come in, and we get to learn. If you risk it and fight a prospect and you lose, it takes you down. Not just like in the rankings and stuff, in people's like perception of you. I was in Swindon this weekend, right, and there was a fighter. I'm not gonna name him, so I don't want to mention no names. This fighter is like 10-2. Yeah, he's a young guy, like 23, 24. I was talking to one of his fans, and he was like, "Oh yeah, he's a good fighter. He had a lot of amateurs. He won the championships, but he's gone a bit downhill. He's took 2 losses." And I was thinking, this guy's 10-2. Who has he lost to? He lost to an 11-2 guy and a 9-1 guy. He probably took those losses because he's trying to jump up quickly, because he probably hasn't got the time to take it slowly. So like in boxing, no one has the understanding. Someone has 20-0 on their record, but they ain't fought nobody. People are like, oh, okay, cool, but someone has a loss because they fought to a good fighter maybe earlier than they should. They don't even consider that. So with people like Conor Benn, you got to bring something to the table. I don't bring nothing to the table. If a guy call me right now and say, you call Conor Benn, I'll get on that treadmill and I'll work my ass off. But I ain't going to sit here name dropping and looking like I'm trying to come up with another man's name, you know what I mean? So with fights like that, I just think about this. I got to take hard fights and get myself ready to fight the best prospects in the UK and the best boxers in the UK. And that's the only way I feel like I'm going to get to that point of massive exposure or anything like that. So that's how it is. So that's why I don't really waste no time talking about other people. I might retweet something, I might like it, I might share it, but I ain't going to be, doing nothing like that. It ain't worth nothing,
Do you think boxing needs to kind of take a look at the way that it handles prospects in that regard? I mean, you just mentioned a fighter who was, 10-2. You've got a disputed loss on your record. Well, first of all, has that impacted on your career at all? Do you think that loss impacted on your marketability?
I think, for me personally, I don't think it's done much of a difference, because I'll tell you an example. When I took that fight, I was 5-0. It was in Russia, and I was fighting a 10-1 guy, right? I put that up on Instagram saying I'm fighting this guy, and everyone was like, why are you fighting that guy? Fast forward, when I lost the fight, everyone was like, oh, you probably weren't going to win that anyway. So for me, it's kind of like, I don't really think anyone believed in me from the start. So like, it didn't like make any bigger difference, you know what I mean? 6 wins since then, so like, no one cared in the beginning, so no one cared when I lost. So for me, it didn't matter. But if someone else has a lot of money pumped into them and a lot of media, and they look really bad in a fight, or they lose a fight, or they win a fight but they shouldn't have won it, it's more detrimental to them, because they're expected, or we're being told they're this, they're that. But if someone, you ain't been told you're nothing and no one really paying attention to you, you take that loss, you cry a bit, you eat a bit of cake, and then you get back into the gym, and that's all you do. So, for me, it ain't never been a problem, because, I've always said to myself, look, I started boxing when I was 20, turned pro when I was 20, did boxing amateur for 2 years, like 11 fights. I said to myself, all right, this is where I want to be by the time this age. no matter what happens, by the time I'm here, I want to be a world level fighter. I never said to myself I want to be 20-0, 20. I said to myself I want to be a world level fighter. I want to be able to compete with anybody. Do you know what I mean? So you get fighters out there that ain't got the best records, but they can compete with anybody and still make a living from the sport. I ain't saying that I want to be me, but shit, I want to be a world champion, but there's just bumps along the road, you know what I mean? You can either fall or you can just keep getting up and keep going and keep getting better. So that's what it is. It's all about attitude, I think. It's all about attitude.
Where do you kind of draw the line or make the distinction between wanting to challenge yourself and face guys who are potentially further along in their careers than you are to kind of bridge that gap and move up in the rankings, and also on the flip side, kind of worry about yourself and just keep building your experience against guys who you are expected to beat? Where do you kind of draw the line and make the distinction? Are there days where you wake up and think, right, I want to fight this guy and I really want to push on? And there are days where you wake up and you think, actually, no, I'm going to keep doing this, going to get a couple of wins, and then gradually.
I think you got to look at it at, the way I look at it at wants and needs, right? So, wants, everyone wants money, everyone wants like attention, whether that be through social media or gratification when you're walking on the street. Everyone wants to be, noticed. So those are wants, right? So when you think about, okay, I want to fight like, Frankie Gavigan looking vulnerable right now. I'm a pressure fighter. I could beat Frankie Gavigan up, right? But then I don't need to fight Frankie Gavigan. I'm 10-1. I don't need that. I'm not in a situation where I'm in dire, desperate needs for money, so I don't need to take a giant step up and fight this guy who I'm not ready for. But then another fighter, it's like I said, situations. If another fighter, this guy's got kids, this guy ain't making no money, he's selling tickets but barely breaking even and stuff like that, he needs to take that shot. But also, it goes about aspirations. Like, you can be like, trying to think, there's a kid called Lee McGregor, he's signed to the, I like him, he's a good fighter. So like, he's taking mad quick moves, but this guy, for him, he's had the experience through the amateurs and all that kind of stuff. Don't want to sound like Tunde Ajayi right now, but he's had all that experience, so he can like take steps quicker. But for him, he knows his ability and the people around him. For some fighters, you got to really look at yourself and look at what you need to improve on. You can't just chuck yourself in there and beat your chest and be like, I just love to fight. Because if you love to fight, whatever, go do on the street. Because there's many prospects I'd fight on the street that I wouldn't fight in the ring. Because I know I'll beat you up in the street, but I won't beat you in the ring. Because you might jab me to death. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. So you just got to look at yourself, look at your situation. Sometimes if you need money real bad, then you might take fights that you want. But if you're not in need, you need to take your time, develop yourself as a fighter first. You know what I mean? And that's how it is. You just got to weigh out everything.
What's the hardest thing about being a prospect? I mean, you've just alluded to certain areas of the fact that you're with Al. You're not an ex-Olympian. You're not with Matchroom or Queensbury. So in a way, you have kind of the ability to take things at your own pace. But is there a flip side to that? Does that make it more difficult? Are there other things about being a prospect with all due respect to Al, a smaller promoter, that make it more difficult for you?
Yeah, it's like obviously finances, income. Most boxers get their finances through sponsors or whatever, stuff like that. Maybe part-time jobs. But for me, it's okay. It's nothing too bad. I'm cool in that kind of department. But I would say the hardest bit is waking up every day. I'm 23, right? All my friends are like between 20 to 25. So like, I got friends that are bringing in money like 40k a year, drive nice cars and stuff like this. So it's hard sometimes it's hard waking up in the morning. You ain't getting money. You won't have no money in your account, no income in your account for like 6, 8, 10 months, right? So you got to live like you're still 15 kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like, you got to live like that. Like, so that's hard. Like when I go out, I see my friends buying this, buying that, doing this. I can't do that. Even if I wanted to, they'd be like, let's go on holiday. Damn well I can't go on holiday. I ain't got no money to go on holiday. That $3,000 I got in my account, that shit's lasting 12 months and it's staying. Do you know what I mean? So like, for me, I think that's the hardest thing, and it's just getting up and going to work every day, even though there's nothing coming back. Because you wouldn't go to work every day if you had no money coming in. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, you're a professional, but you feel like a volunteer. Do you know what I mean? So that's the hardest thing, and I think in order for that to change, I think like boxing has to be governed like maybe by other sports rather than an independent, whatever kind of thing, whatever how it is now. It has to be governed separately by like companies or government or something, or you know what I mean, some sort of organisation that covers everything, and then people can work under that. Do you know what I mean? Rather than everyone for themselves kind of thing, because the fighters come last. Because you might get like a small promotional company that has paying their employees, the matchmakers, the referees, but then the fighters are the ones actually bringing the people in. But we ain't see no money. So, but it's hard. I mean, you do it for a reason, because you believe you're gonna get to this point, or you hope so, and you know so. I mean, everyone knows how it is. If you don't want to do it, you can walk. So, you know, that's the hardest bit, I'd say. The money side, income, lifestyle, hard work. Feels like a lot of giving, and no, it feels like a lot of taking and no giving sometimes.
I appreciate that and respect that. I mean, I've been in a similar situation. I studied in my early 20s. A lot of my friends went off to university when they were 18 and come out grad jobs, and I was kind of in my mid-20s with no money and kind of seeing all my friends go on holiday and get, as you say, driving around in nice cars, and I'm there with bus pass. Yeah. Like, has there ever been a moment where you have considered what you're doing in the sport? Does that come around often, or do you have that kind of steely resolve where that's never even entered your mind? I mean, I think it's human, first of all, to kind of have that feeling. But can you remember a specific time?
You know what? For me, it's never come up, and it's for one reason alone. I'm really, really lazy. Like, I can train hard as hell for a fight, do all the work, but I don't want to go sit in a 9 to 5, right? So like, I even went to uni just because I didn't want to work. I didn't want to be at uni, but I was like, my friend's like, yeah, man, you get student loan and you can just, you know, read some books and get paid. I was like, oh, I'm going to do that for a bit. Then I turned pro, I was like, oh, okay, you can do this for a bit. And I had a couple sponsors supporting me, so I was like, okay, you know what, I'm going to just stick to this boxing thing, see how far I can go. And I know I'm good. I know I can get there, you know, like to that top level, certain, just with time and stuff like that. So like, for me, it's just been a case that it is my dream, and I really don't want to work unless I have to work, unless, you know what I mean? Even now, I've been working, like, you know, at the factory or whatever, just because I haven't had a fight. I haven't fought since September, and I'm not fighting until March. So I've been working, but, you know, I don't want to work. So, and money's not a big thing for me. So it's just like, I'm going to just keep chasing my dream, and the money will come later on. So, yeah, it's a situation. Like, I don't want to work. I like boxing. I love training. I love fighting. And I'm going to just, I mean, look at guys like Dave Allen, man. You know what I mean? So, like, and other characters in the game, like, even people like O'Hara Davies, stuff like that. You know, if we didn't have boxing, I wouldn't say I would be in the street or nothing, but I used to get in trouble a lot, and I used to do dumb stuff. So like, and I don't like to work, so I just kind of think like, if I didn't have this, where else would I be, or what else would I be doing? Because I never had a job longer than 2 months. I'll tell you that right now, and I don't really see myself working on. You know what I mean? So boxing's kind of giving me like a long-term goal to focus on. And then obviously when I need to work, then I work a bit and sustain myself and get help from my sponsors and my team and my manager. Do you know what I mean? Help me keep afloat. But the end goal is always boxing. And there will come a time, obviously, let's say I hit like 26 and I'm still feeling, like I said earlier, like I'm still feeling like I'm a volunteer. Then it might be time to say I'm either going to take big ass risks or I'm going to stop the sport and just move on. And that everyone has to come to that conclusion at their own time, at their own stage. So, yeah.
Appreciate this is potentially a difficult question and you've kind of answered it in a roundabout way there. What's the best thing about being a boxer, apart from the fact that you don't have to get a job?
Oh, man, I like punching people in the face really hard, man. You know what? I've always loved boxing. I was always used to get into fights as a kid. I remember when I was still in South Africa, my parents sent me to like an all-white school, because they wanted me to have like really good English and stuff. So I get there, I think I'm like 2-3 years, I don't know how old I was. How old are you when you can start fighting? I was old enough to fight, that's all I know. So I walk into the school gates, and I'm the only, there's like 100 white kids, and then there's like 2 or 3 Indian kids, and I'm the only black kid, right? So I get there, and then I can't remember what this kid says, but I just punch him. I just punch him in the face. He said something, I punch him in the face. And then my uncle, my brother was just like, oh, it's day one, goddamn. So like, ever since I can remember, I've always been fighting. Always been, not because like I look trouble, but there's always been a situation where my first reaction is always just to throw a fist. So when I moved to England, same thing. When I first moved to Bracknell, there was like very few like white people. There was very few like black people. It was just mostly like a white area. I moved there like 2001 or whatever. Went to this school called Crownwood, Holmes or whatever. So I always used to get like people chuck jokes at me because I was black and stuff. But the thing is, I'm coming from South Africa where racism is like deeply embedded in the history. So like, you can call me this and this, but I'm gonna just punch you because I know you ain't gonna do nothing. Because that's what I'm coming from and that's what I'm used to. So then eventually my dad was just like, man, just go to the boxing gym. Do you know what I mean? So for me, I've just always liked fighting, always been involved in fighting, and it's like, for me, it's great to be able to like do that and do something I love. So yeah, I just like fighting. I think in the day you gotta like fighting to even get in it. You know what I mean? And you gotta be a competitor. I'm very relaxed, but there's some things like anything. I don't even like lift weights, but if my friend goes to me, I bet I can deadlift more than you, and I'm like, I can do that. So I'm just a competitor by nature, and I've always been fighting. So that's what it is. It's just competitiveness and fighting, and that's what it is, keeps you going.
So what was that like for you? I mean, you've mentioned there that you were a very relaxed guy. I mean, I've had lunch with you. I've met you on several instances. You don't strike me as the type of man to punch somebody in the face as a first kind of reflex. Move my chair back a little bit just in case. Where does that come from? Is it, I mean, you've mentioned kind of your upbringing in South Africa, and I can only imagine how difficult that must have been to kind of be the only black guy or black child in a school full of white people in a country that, as you mentioned, is kind of entrenched in certainly racial issues over a prolonged period of time. Do you think that is kind of where the root is from?
No, I wouldn't say, because obviously I moved from South Africa when I was only 6. I moved to England. Obviously, I'll go back every single year, so even though I'll go back, so I wouldn't say. So I haven't been deeply affected by that kind of stuff, but I think it's like one of them things. Like I think some people go their entire life without fighting. Do you know what I mean? Like, and like there's never really a need to fight. You can always like find a way out of it, but like, it's like if someone pulls my card, then I've never been able to run away. Like, I've never been able to walk away because I've just maybe too much pride or something like that. So I think it's just dependent on the person. So like, for me, it's just always been like, if someone gets in an argument with me and they push me, I'm not gonna step back, even if I know I might get my ass beat. I'd rather get my ass beat and be like, okay, whatever. Do you know what I mean? You won, but that's just how it always have been with me. So like, I've had a good upbringing, got both my parents, all my family's close and stuff like that, but that's just always how it's been. Plus my dad, whenever I get into fights, he'd never be like, you shouldn't be fighting. He'd be like, oh yeah, did you win, kind of thing. Because like, so it's been like that. So I'm not say it's been like, they said it's positive, but my dad's never really been like, oh, you shouldn't be doing this. He'd be like, do you know what I mean? Like, you should be able to defend yourself. But it's just how it's happened. Like, I've never went out and started fights with anybody, but I've always been in situations where I've had to fight, and then I've more than gladly willing to fight. So that's just how it is, and that's how it is with boxing. Like, because it's just in my nature anyway, naturally. Like, I wasn't groomed to be a boxer. I wasn't forced into it. Like, it wasn't even in my path. It was kind of just so happened to be, and it just so happened that I like fighting, and then it just clicked together naturally. So I think it just happened by itself, really.
Did boxing kind of harness that side of you? I mean, I assume you're not getting into street fights now. Did that kind of coincide with you going to the boxing gym? Did that kind of take away that element of you, or was it something that was kind of a gradual process? I mean, I assume it's still in you because you're a fighter, but certainly the frequency of that happening, or certainly situations that you allowed yourself to get into, did that become less and less often because of boxing allowing you to kind of harness that energy? Yeah,
I mean, once I started boxing, I never got into fights. Never. Since I've been boxing, okay, well, I was amateur for about 3 years. Never got into any fights when I was amateur, like outside. Once I started boxing, stopped boxing, and then I started getting into fights again. Like, you know, when I first turned 18, I stopped boxing. I stopped boxing for about 18 to 20, so about 2 years I took out boxing. then I started fighting again. Like if I was at the club, I was like drunk or something, like I'd get into a fight, some crazy stuff like that. So like then I go back into boxing, and then like I wouldn't fight again. So I feel like it's always there. I sound like a hoodlum, right? It's always been there, but then when it's boxing, it's just more like it's something I like doing, and it's just boxing. So it's like I'm fighting anyway. I'm training, and then like I'm training to fight. So all I'm thinking about is the fight, and then it's just in me. So I just like fighting, and then because boxing's there, I know that's what I'm doing. I know I'm not gonna go out and get drunk and get in a street fight, and God forbid, like I lose my license or my hands break or something, or I get knocked out. So like so that just takes out that whole entire element. But yeah, so for me it's like boxing takes away all the other the narcotics, drinks, drugs, all that kind of stuff, and all it is boxing. So then you don't have time to be going out and getting involved in dumb stuff with your friends. You just have this, and that's all you're doing. And then with the natural fire in you anyway, you just like it. You just like what you're doing. You like sparring. You like getting into wars and just sparring and like just taking ridiculous shots and stuff like that. Sounds dumb, but you do. And then when you go into the fight, you like trying to be as entertaining as possible. You know what I mean? Trying to like, if you know what I mean, you just like it. You just like all of it. So it just blends all naturally together if you've got that in you. But some people, they're not actually fighters. They're boxers. So like they won't be like that. They've been brought into boxing and it's just a sport for them. But for me, it's kind of like it's a thing. It's more like a bravado thing for me. Like I like fighting, and I'm a boxer. I'm not a boxer, and you know what I mean. I'm not a boxer by nature. I'm a fighter, and I box. So that's what it is. So yeah.
Okay, well I'm going to wrap this up before that old fighter part of you comes out. Now got me on edge a little bit. Always a pleasure to sit down and speak with you. I do appreciate you making this journey to sit down with me. Looking forward to seeing you back in the ring. Before you go, tell people where to follow you on Instagram and Twitter.
Yeah, my Instagram is Black Panther Boxing. Black Panther Boxing on Instagram. Twitter, LutherClay95. Everything else is personal. That's about it. Yeah, so give me a follow. Thank you.
Okay, well, the Black Panther, Luther Clay, always a pleasure to sit down with you. Have a good Christmas. Don't put on any more weight.
Nah.
And I will see you soon.
Lose, man. Cheers.